Oh, are we doing more stuff with trees today?
We're doing so much more stuff with trees today. Good morning. Hello.
Oh my gosh. You don't know what to talk about.
I know.
Drink that?
It's all so good. Everybody's like eating like slimy. It's like it's not slimy. It's literally like
That's
water.
what she put on the
It's like
sunburn.
mango. No, it tastes like mango water.
It says
with like
no,
apple
it is-
flavor. It says
Megan,
mango
that was-
flavor.
You're
It's my breakfast.
It
Like,
says mango
yeah.
flavor.
drinking
Why
chunks.
is it cold?
it's not as bad.
Ew. That sounds disgusting. That's like drinking a hot aloe vera blender.
Well, right now she is drinking it. I put it on my skin when I'm burnt.
Yeah, that's
That's what I do.
Well, I got some stuff for my bee
Yes.
sting. It says aloe vera on the bottom.
It's so strong.
Nice.
I want to remind you guys of a couple things really quick, and then we're going to do so much with trees. I love it. Soils is tomorrow. So if you are going to that, okay, what period are we leaving after? Fourth period, so right after fourth period you'll come down, which means that you should have a grade check from your 5th, 7th, and 8th period teachers, and I need that by the end of the day today. Okay, so make sure that you've done that. Also, to go to soils, remember that you need to have attended 2 of the 3 practices. So if at this point you have attended 0, as far as I know, if my math is correct, it's going to be really hard to go tomorrow, right? So we have our last practice tonight from 5:30 to 7. Silas Jolliffe has been coming as our coach. He came yesterday, and I thought I did a great job of walking everybody through it. I don't know how comfortable you all feel that we're there. And so today we're really going to kind of get our hands literally dirty, but dirt. Soil. He's going to go through that stuff with anybody who wasn't there yesterday too. So that's tonight, 5:30 to 7. We'll meet in here and then we'll go out to the pit. Also, if you are going tomorrow, remember that you need to bring, make sure that you bring $5 with you, and we're going to stop, we're going to get lunch. I'm thinking Subway. We'll have like a picnic. So I don't think we can eat in Subway, so I think we got a Subway platter, and then we can have a picnic in the field.
What do you mean something like
She's so cute.
You need to see when they make a whole bunch of sandwiches and like, I don't know. We got it for a party one time.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know why those taste better than like single sub. I don't know why.
Oh, the catering thing.
I went to a Subway.
So, that is tomorrow. Make sure you bring that. Also tomorrow, we will be back. We're leaving right after fourth period. We'll be back by the time the bell rings because at 2 o'clock, what is happening?
It's our chapter meeting.
It is our chapter meeting.
We want an official dress for so
No.
Oh, thank
Just
you.
wear your
Dude,
big
I was
shirt.
really
No,
scared.
because you would end up discussing.
So tomorrow at 2 o'clock, chapter meeting. Still like not 100% on which location it's going to be in, but I will send that out through Remind, so that you guys will have that. Make sure also that on meeting days, right? Oh, with the meeting, 90% attendance is our goal for every chapter meeting, so please make sure that you are there. Lots of stuff that we're going to be talking about. On meeting days, remember we wear our face shirts, right? Counts as a grade, so make sure that you do that. If you have to dress for something else, that's cool. But if not, make sure, especially if you're going to the soils, because then you represent while we're there. Made it on the same day, so you don't have to watch it. So that is all tomorrow. Today, we have a committee meeting at lunch for the fruit sale. Okay, so that fruit sale committee meeting. The sophomores signed up for that are Caitlin Lanham, Sage Wetnall, Lana Carlisle, Marcy Rollins, and Peyton Goodman. So if you are on that committee, please make sure that you are here at lunch. If you are not on that committee, but you would like to be engaged in helping planning the fruit sale, you are welcome to join us at lunch for that today. On Monday, we're going to have a fruit sale about our Fight for a Cure and powder puff. Okay. Jobs, if you're interested, let me know. today, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. It's National Teach Ag Day.
Oh.
Yay! So, September 17th is National Teach Ag Day. I think it's the same day every year, but also I don't know if they just named it the same. So, really cool. We're celebrating ag ed and the teach ag profession.
Didn't Brooke like get into
Not mad about it.
or something for that?
She's considering going for being an ag teacher.
I was talking sort of like something like got accepted of somewhere.
Yeah, she's going to a like Wilmington preview, like ag preview thing. Ooh, yeah. Super exciting. The last thing that I have for you today is kind of a present, but you guys can pick if you want the present or not.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to decide as a collective. You can decide individually. But I want to tell you what it is. For the banquet, okay, I had ordered these, and I was going to give them to everybody, but then I thought, okay, maybe not everybody would really want one. So if you don't want one, it's cool. If you do want one, I have enough for everybody. But the fact, you know, if you know that you're not going to keep it or whatever, then it's fine. But what's really cool is that this past year at the National FFA Convention, like in 2019, they handed these out. And so when I was ordering stuff for the banquet, I thought, wow, that's a really cool piece of history. I would like to have that for everybody in the chapter if they would like one. So basically last year, 2019, was the 50th anniversary of women being allowed in the FFA, right? So what year, do you guys remember, were women allowed in the FFA? Beautiful, 1969. So 2019, okay, was the 50th anniversary of women in ag. So they have these really cool pins that they handed out at the National Convention. They have them available online, and when I was ordering banquet stuff, I thought it'd be really cool if our kids had a piece of that history. My dad, for like just putting this in your mind, he has like a little wooden box, right? Kind of his trinket box, and he has a lot of his old FFA pins in it. He has a lot of things that he got from the fire department throughout the year, like years of appreciation. They gave him like a watch once, or they gave him pins or little things like that. And so he has a box where he's kept like all of those things. So when I went to National Convention, when I was in school, I got like a commemorative 85 years of FFA pin, or like not pin, like a little coin. And apparently that used to be a thing that they used to give out FFA convention coins to everybody at the convention. And he was like, whoa, that's cool. Hey, hold on a second. And went upstairs and he pulled down one that he had gotten from his National Convention in like 1976. So really cool just to kind of have that stuff. If you want it to put on your jacket, if you want it to put in a special box and show your grandkids, and I don't do the math on how long that'll be. You're welcome to have one. I have one for each of you. If you know that it's not going to mean that much, or that you're just going to, I don't know, you don't have to take it, but if you want one, I have one for everybody. So I'll come around. You're welcome.
I like them.
Do these ones go on the inside of our knife?
Yes, these would not go on the outside.
Okay, that's what I like FFA pins. They're always like very nice.
I have to go to state and get a higher.
Oh. Yes.
I'm gonna put
Thank Thanks so much.
for the present.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cherish it. I'm weird with it.
I'll put it right on my map.
Yeah, you can stick with your just please, I would really love it if I didn't like find these around the halls later. So put them somewhere safe.
And then throw it away. Don't throw it away.
Awesome.
My buddy is just trying to grab it. Wait, so do we know when it's 24?
Looking at potentially the week of October 9th, but I'm in communications with the other county teachers.
Like that Friday?
Oh.
But that is still. Do you guys have questions about anything that I told you? Okay, cool. You want to talk about trees?
Yeah,
sure.
I feel like there should be a song for this.
Oh, we will learn lots of songs. I have no fear. When I tell you guys that we're on Forest Street,
I didn't do
like the
it.
cheesiest pieces of this wallet come out during Forest Street.
Oh.
I love it. Okay, remind me, what did we talk about yesterday?
No.
Notes!
Oh.
The vocal nodules that sit on your windpipes and crush your dreams, right?
Oh, man.
Also
Yeah.
the little lumps at the end of the leaf, right?
Yeah.
Probably the more important one right now. So the notes, right? That piece at the end of the leaf, and why is that so important? Why do we need to know where that is?
If it's opposite or alternate. If it's a whole.
Yeah, so if it's opposite or alternate, helping you figure out if it's compound or singular, right? Helping you figure out where the whole leaf starts so you don't get confused about a leaflet, right? Because the little leaflets that come off of a leaf, I can say that again, that's fascinating. But the little leaflets that come off of a leaf won't have a node, right? Just step on the stage. So finding that node is really important. What else? What else is important? That we talked about yesterday.
Mad butt.
Mad butt, right? What is mad butt? Maple, ash, dogwood, and buckeye. Why is that significant?
Those are the only ones that are opposite.
Yes, those are the only four trees in all the world that Miss Wallet knows about that are opposite, right? So maybe is there some decorative tree in like Yemen or something that has opposite branching? Maybe. Are you going to find another tree other than those four in the United States with opposite branching? No. Okay. So those four is really because the process of elimination, right? If you find a tree and you think, wow, look at those nodes. Wow, all those nodes are right across from each other. Okay. I automatically know that it's one of these four. If it's compounds, I automatically know that it's one of those two. Right? It's not a buckeye, which I know what that looks like. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with the buckeye leaf. If not, we'll learn about it. I know it's not a buckeye. Those are really distinct. Must be an ash, right? Okay. So really easy to help you narrow that down once you know that information. So there's your complex versus singular, right? Your mad buck, your opposite, because again, these are leaflets, right? And this is the whole leaf. That's where the node would be. Alternate leaves where they're kind of sporadic. And we're going to start talking today about a couple different kind of trees. So we're going to spend some time talking about the characteristics of different types of trees, but it's really important that you understand these characteristics so that you can identify them when you do your leaf books, right? These kind of things as well. We are going to start at the bottom of page 86. I know that these images aren't perfect, but hopefully they will help you with seeing the leaves a little bit. We're going to play around the world. We're really going to kind of pound these into your head. So hopefully by the end of this, you're going to be able to identify these leaves. Okay? You guys can copy down information about each leaf on the lines beside it. Also, if you remember from your leaf book yesterday, you're collecting those 19 trees, right? There's going to be a few trees that if you find, you can add to your leaf books for extra credit, okay? And what's the information that you need with each leaf in your leaf book?
The scientific name.
The scientific name,
The origin and the characteristics.
the origin, 3 to 5 characteristics, and the real name of the tree, right? So if you guys follow along with this, benefit for you, right, is that other than the scientific name, I am giving you all of the information that you need for your leaf book. So you guys can just use your notes then to make that happen. So I actually was going to pass this around, but I just realized I don't think I can pass this around. But I have wood samples, okay, of the different types of trees. So when we're talking about the leaves and identifying those, but also the different ways that different wood from different trees can look, okay? So the first one we are going to learn about is the American beech, okay? The American beech has a beech nut on it, if you guys have ever heard of a beech nut. Okay, it comes off of a beech tree. That's what they look like. They're kind of spiky. Can you guys see that screen all right, all of you? So they have beech nut. They're going to prefer damp woods. So as a tree, they're going to do better in soil that's really saturated. Okay, that's pretty wet. It keeps that moisture. Okay. Does anybody know the difference, or what? I won't say the difference. Does anybody know what the word deciduous means?
Native to wherever it's.
That's a good guess.
Yeah, I can't see
Does that help?
Oh,
that. Yes.
Does that help you?
Yeah.
Very nice. Anybody else have a guess of what deciduous might be? What about if I said that the opposite of deciduous was evergreen?
Leaves fall
That's
off.
what I.
Is that a Christmas?
Say it louder for the people in the front.
The leaves fall off.
That the leaves fall off. So if it is a deciduous tree, I said people in the front instead of people in the back. Get it? So deciduous means that it is a tree that loses its leaves in the winter. All right, as opposed to evergreen, which is like your pine trees, right? That usually have a needle of some sort that keep their leaves or their needles year round. Okay. Your beech tree is going to grow about 22.9 meters tall. That's a little over or close to 70 feet tall. So they get pretty tall as a tree. They bloom mid-spring, and they can live 300 to 400 years. That's an old tree, right?
Yeah.
If we're looking at this piece of wood, all right, talking about that characteristic, I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of light, right? It's not like a super dark wood, but if I hit this, I don't know if you can hear that sound. If you could feel it, you'd be able to feel that a lot more. It's a really heavy piece of wood, okay, as opposed to one that maybe is more porous, would be lighter, more airy, right? So this is what we call a hardwood tree. Super scientific. The wood is hard. It is a hardwood tree. Okay. So basically, what that means is this is gonna be used a lot more in like maybe building houses, maybe building furniture, because how many of you have ever used a hammer and nail on a piece of wood? Okay. How many of you guys, when you did that, missed and you left a big dent in the piece of wood? How many of you have ever hit a piece of wood and it didn't bend that much? Okay, so that is the difference between kind of softwood and hardwood, is if you use like a pine, okay, which is like what you guys would be using, I guess, in your projects last year. It's a softer wood, all right, so it's not as dense. So it's going to, if you get wet, it might like deform a little bit easier, but it also just doesn't hold up quite as well. Your hardwood trees, because they take longer to grow, right? If it just shoots up, it doesn't take that long to develop, right? These really take their time and develop their trees. So your hardwood trees usually have a longer lifespan, and they also usually take longer to grow. Your trees that grow really fast are usually going to be your softwoods. And because they're not as dense, they would fall down or be knocked over by the wind or something like that easier too. Does that make sense as a concept? Mm-hmm. Cool. Beech tree, as far as identifying it, they're really smooth, okay? And you have like really straight lines, okay? So the veins in it are really smooth. So if you want to think like, oh, when I go to the beach, this is what I want my abs to look like, maybe, I don't know. Blackboard abs there. Maybe those look like waves to you, but either way, you can kind of decide. Questions about the beech tree? Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about is the chestnut tree, the American chestnut. Okay, these leaves are actually pretty big. I know the picture doesn't really show that, but the chestnut leaves are going to be pretty hefty in size. All right, kind of big. These are native to North America, so they started here in the United States. That's where they're from. A few of them remain following a 1930 sweep of chestnut blight, which was a fungus. So basically there was this fungus that specifically targeted the genetics of a chestnut tree, and it wiped out a whole bunch of them. And so a lot of your chestnuts anymore don't really get past 6 meters tall, which is only about 18 feet, right? I say only, and you're like, well, Miss Walla, 18 feet is still kind of tall. But compared to a beech tree that's getting like 70 feet tall, right? That's not a super tall tree. So because that blight in the 1930s kind of wiped some of that out. They have chestnuts on them, right? Like a nut, just a chestnut. So, you know, chestnuts roasting on the open fire. Jack Frost. See, I told you we were gonna sing. Jack Frost nipping at my toes, nose. What's he nip at? I don't know. So these produce a chestnut. That doesn't have a picture of that on. They actually is something that people eat, right? Chestnuts, you can roast the chestnuts, you can have them. It's a treat. Chestnut. These are also going to prefer moist uplands, so you're probably going to find them on hills and mountains, but also not in a desert, right? They ideally grow about 20 meters, or 30 meters high. But again, because of that blight, it really kind of stunted their growth by a lot. And they're going to bloom in early summer. Chestnut, like I said, is pretty big. It's got these jagged, I don't know, if you think like it's from like the American chestnut, it was from North America. If you think maybe these are like Native American, okay, that works. I would say like Native American spears or something. Oh, what you said.
It looks like a C on the side.
Yeah. Like a, yeah, that makes sense. Like it looks like the letter C, and it's a chestnut.
I can't see the colors.
It says blooms early summer.
No. Prefers moist upland.
I think I wrote uphill.
Yep, I definitely did.
Do you guys have questions about the chestnut?
No, but
Am I moving too fast? Do you guys have?
did.
I don't know. Here, let me see if I can.
You need to read my gray. Yep. Do we have that Spanish pieces? No, that's tomorrow. What do we have today that we're supposed to study? Oh, we have a math quiz. I'm tired. Oh, we have a math quiz. Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Does that help? Okay, I will go through tonight and make the fonts on all those bigger, if that is easier for you guys to see.
No, it's the same one. It's not just, it's just brighter.
It's just bigger.
More clear, bigger.
Can you guys see that in the back easier?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that these ones are still going to be small, but I'll try to go through tonight and make them all big like that. Okay. The next one that we are going to learn about is called, and if you ever like, well, Miss Walla, pump the brakes, you're going way too fast, please let me know. The next one that we're going to learn about is the elm tree. Let me see if I have elm right there. Here's chestnut wood. It's a little bit darker. It's also significantly lighter than the beech wood was. The softwood. And this is elm, which also kind of has like a red tint to it. This is a lot heavier. So here, hold this one. Oh wow. I don't know if we're allowed to. Yeah. I'll put them over here if you guys, I'll put this hand sanitizer by it. If you guys want to see them, you Ruining all our tree fun. Okay, but the next one, this one I think is really cool. Like I said, I geek out about forestry, so I think this is cool. The elm tree, okay, like Nightmare on Elm Street, and if you think like really jagged edges, right? I don't know, like didn't the guy have like knives for fingers or something?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
Freddy.
Freddy Krueger.
Krueger.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, Freddy Krueger, same thing. Yeah. But the elm tree is again a native to North America. It was affected at one point by what's called the Dutch elm disease. So again, just kind of a blight that's specifically targeted. And a blight is like would be kind of like a pandemic or a virus for us. Like a blight in plants is that similar kind of diseasey. So Dutch elm disease was something that targeted the elm trees at one point. A lot of these are kind of named after the trees that they targeted. So if you ever hear about a disease, you're like, oh, Dutch elm disease. Bet that hits the elm trees, right? They prefer rich woods, floodplains, and stream banks. So if you are ever at a lake, if you're ever on a river canoeing or something, you're probably going to see a lot of elm trees because they really like those river banks and those really wet areas. They are also deciduous. Pretty much all of these trees are going to be deciduous until we get to our evergreen section. They grow up to 36 meters tall. So these are over 100-foot trees.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, right? That would be like 108 feet, I think. That was really high. They bloom in the early spring, and they can also live up to 300 years because, again, they're a hardwood. So if you guys pick up these, if we're writing down, okay, the elm is a hardwood, the chestnut is a softwood, and then you go and pick up those wood samples, you're going to feel that difference that Addie and Colin and Ashton just felt. Yeah.
Not to be dumb, but like,
Yeah, that's a question.
say the tree grows as long as does it just die? Like, it doesn't get cut down or doesn't like rot, gets some disease. What does it do?
Like when it's 300 years old, what happens to it?
Yeah.
Once they stop growing, as long as they're kept healthy, I mean, you don't die when you stop growing, right? So as long as they're still getting nutrients and stuff like that, they can keep kind of living for a while. But usually 300 is when they, would kind of just start to die. Because all living things like die eventually,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't just stand forever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to take. Okay, yeah. That's not going to necessarily mean that it's going to take 300 years to grow, right? It might take 30 years to get to that 108 feet, and then it stands like that for a very long time. It's a hardwood, so it can withstand a lot. And then once it's sucking in nutrients from the ground and stuff, just like our plants are, right? But it can live for that long time. So if you're like, wow, I really want to plant a tree in my yard that I'm gonna watch grow, and then like my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren are gonna be like, hey, my grandma McKenna planted that tree, right? Then you want to pick a tree that doesn't have a lifespan of like 20 years, right? You want to pick one that has a lifespan of a long time. What I think is really cool about the elm tree, okay? What I think is really cool about the elm tree, and a really easy way to identify. I love these trees that have really specific characteristics that when you see it, you're like, oh, I know that is that one, right? So if you think about it, didn't Freddy Krueger have like a mask on his face or something?
No, his
No.
face was burned.
Okay, his face was burned. Wasn't it only burned on half?
That's Two-Face from Batman comics.
All right, I don't watch a lot of scary movies, Dave. I'm a baby about them. But like a weird dude, anyways, right? So we have the jagged edges. An elm tree. I really thought that was gonna help with this metaphor, and it totally destroyed it. So, an elm tree at the bottom, what does that look like right there? Well, you see the node, but like other than the node, it's bigger on this side, right? So an elm leaf is the only leaf that purposefully is not symmetrical. Okay, so if you were to take this leaf and fold it in half over the vein, they're not going to line up. So one, if you always look at the base of the leaf, if they don't line up consistently, right? Maybe there's a tree that like a caterpillar ate some off the bottom or whatever, but consistently, then that's an elm tree. The other really similar or really specific characteristic is if you look at this and you think, wow, I think that's uneven. If you feel an elm leaf at any given time, if on the top, it feels like sandpaper, like a really coarse sandpaper. The top of the leaf is really, really rough. So if you're like, wow, I think that's an elm tree, and you feel it. So if you burned, his face is kind of rough, right? Maybe, I don't know. These are really bad descriptions, but if you feel it, it would be, it's not rough here. This is a whiteboard, so I don't know why I did that. But. So you can write those things down too if you want. Always unsymmetrical, right? Really rough, sandpapery type leaf. Cool. Okay, this is kind of fun one too. You guys have probably all seen a cherry tree at some point or another. Heard of a cherry tree, right? George Washington chopped one down back in his prime. So a cherry tree is going to have a smaller leaf. So again, the pictures are all the same size, but this is probably smaller than a dollar bill, right? About this big. They're really long and skinny and really thick. So like width-wise, they feel pretty. The leaves feel pretty thick in your hands. What's really characteristic about a cherry tree is in the right time of year, what do they have on them? Cherries, right? So little red decorative cherries. Don't start eating all the red berries that you find in your woods after I show you this and say these are cherries, right? Because some of them are not cherries and they're poisonous. But that's a really easy way to tell if it's a cherry tree, especially if you're looking at it in the spring, where while it is bloomed with cherries, you see those and it's kind of a dead giveaway. These are also native to eastern North America, which is kind of where we are at, right? So if you go out to Oregon, Washington, Utah, they're not going to have really, they might have some cherry trees, but they didn't start in the West, right? So the eastern North America is where we're talking about those eastern states. It has small cherries. When those cherries are ripe, they turn black or like a really dark red. Okay, so if they're bright red, they're going to be really sour. These prefer woodlands, thickets, and fence rows. And I want to talk about a concept with you, okay? Why would a cherry tree grow in a lot of fence rows? Like a row of fence. Like if you have a fence in front of your property or something, and it's like the fence is in a row, a straight line. So a fence row would just be like they would grow up through fences a lot. Yes, nature says somebody's going to want to pick these cherries. I'm going to put it in your stead.
I was just kidding.
Does the cherries fall off the trees? Okay, so the cherries might, like around the trees, grow up. So once they're already in the fence row, you're saying? Okay. Megan, what did you say?
I said they don't want people eating it.
They don't want people eating it, so they put it in a fence row to protect it? Sure. Who's they?
Malia.
Mother Nature saying, these are my cherries. You can't have them.
Birds ate the cherries out on the fence, pooped out the seed, so it
I feel like you're saying that to be funny.
both. I'm being serious and being funny. She's always fun.
Multitasking.
Abby,
I only have
100% just hit the nail on the head.
Really?
100%. So, the cherry trees, they have these really small cherries, right? Birds love to eat those cherries. They're perfect little bird size. They fit in their little bird beaks, right? They taste good. Birds love to eat berries or cherries off the cherry trees. When birds are done with the cherries, what do they have to do? Everybody poops, right? The birds have to poop. Seeds in most creatures of most things don't digest well, okay? So when the birds eat the cherries, they get the meat of the cherry, right? But when they swallow it, they don't actually digest the seeds inside the cherries. So when they poop, those little tiny cherry seeds are still in their poop, okay? And you guys probably like to say, well, poop, I don't know, maybe that's too personal information. But they like to be probably, well, I don't know, I guess they do all the time. But birds like to sit on fences, right? They like to perch on little fence rows on top of fences. They probably poop while they're perched there. And then the cherry seed in the fertilizer, right? A little package of bird poop fertilizer lands on the ground. It develops, and then a cherry tree grows. So that's why a lot of your blackberry bushes, if you guys have any like wild blackberry bushes around your house or around your friends' houses or anything, that's why a lot of those are also in fence rows and thickets, because that's where those birds like to go perch. And so once they've eaten the berries, they poop out the seeds, and then those plants grow up through the fence rows. kind of a cool like why to nature, right? You might always have noticed that like blackberry bushes are around fences, but you're like, wow. Yeah, I know it's pretty cool.
I probably Abigail.
She hit it right on the head. Deciduous, the trees are deciduous, so they're gonna lose their leaves in the fall or when it gets cold out. These only grow 7.5 meters tall, so that's only like 22 and a half feet, okay? So in tree world, that's not very tall, and that's why a lot of people will use cherry trees as like a decorative tree. Like they'll put them in their front yard or something like that. I believe there's a cherry tree out front of the school, kind of used in landscaping a little bit for that. And they have a moderate lifespan, so they're not gonna last 400 years like our elm trees, but they're not going to die after 10 years either. What's really cool about cherry trees is it is a hardwood, okay? But this is how the wood naturally cuts. It's naturally that color, so it's really pretty, right? And it's naturally like you wouldn't have to stain it to give it a really distinct color. Partially, it has kind of this red tint because of the cherries, right? So kind of like, I don't want to say cherry juice because it's not like cherry juice is in the wood, but that pigment, right, natural pigment. So if you cut down a cherry tree, the inside of it, the trunk, is going to look like this. So because of that, and because it's a pretty heavy wood, right, cherry wood is super popular in furniture. Okay, you're gonna have a lot of benches and stuff like that. It grows from, or it's made from cherry wood because it is a hardwood. Okay, so it's gonna last a while. It's not gonna dent the second that you accidentally drop on your toe or something. And it's got that really pretty color. It's expensive though, because how tall do cherry trees get?
20 something.
About 22 feet, okay? So compared to maybe an elm tree that's gonna get 108 feet, how many cherry trees would I need to cut down to get the equivalent of an elm tree? Like 5 cherry trees would be the same as like 1 elm tree. So you need a lot more of those trees to get a really timberable amount of wood. And when I say timberable, I mean we're sending it to a sawmill. They're taking that log, they're cutting it down into logs, they're putting it off, right? We're going to learn about that. But it's going to take a lot more cherry trees to produce that same amount of wood because they don't grow as tall. So that's why cherry wood can be kind of expensive too, because it's popular because of its color and its density. But at the same time, there's not as much of it. Or you have to have more trees to get the same amount of wood. Is that cool? Do you guys have questions about any of these that we won't talk about? Okay, I love it. Oh my gosh. Tomorrow we're gonna start with one of my favorite trees. You don't get to know yet. It was no warning. Okay, I will see you all tomorrow. Please go to
I got a paper on over that. I'm not sure what it's I'm great. Oh, great thought about it.
I
didn't realize we got it in there.
I can see the camera.
Megan, do you want grapes or
Camera, look at it. Jake. Hey, Jen. I'm down the bottom.
bring mist? Are you kidding me? Oh, geez, you mean? Little baggy. We need big. Yeah.
Are you allowed to leave?
Yeah.